Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I hope you can hear me. I am Loka Pavani, and I'm currently in Switzerland, winter tour, so greetings from here. Today, I would like to talk about the glories of Tulasi Devi, and this will be just part one of the sessions about her glories, because recently I gave a seminar on the same topic, the glories of Tulasi Devi, and I was speaking for 2 hours, and I realized that there's so many things we can actually say about Tulasi Devi, how she's connected to the whole Bhakti Yoga philosophy. But before we start to explain a little bit about her, I would like to actually show my Tulasis at home. So I have 2 of them. So this is one bigger Tulasi Devi and a smaller one is here. They're just like babies, maybe 1 year old. They will be in May. And Tulasi is very much connected with spiritual life of practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, because she is very much connected with Krishna. And sometimes people think like that you have to be initiated or you have to be very advanced in spirituality to worship Tulasi, but actually you don't have to be. Sometimes you don't even have to know, you don't need to know who Tulasi Devi is in order to worship her, and you will have the same benefit. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada would explain, Srila Prabhupada, who is one of the saints in our Bhakti Yoga line, he would say that it's just the quality of something that is pure, that if you are in contact with something that is pure, automatically the space where the pure person is will become pure. And if you associate with something that is pure, you will also become pure. So that's the reason actually why we want to have Tulasi in our home. So anyone can have Tulasi. There are no like impediments for you to have her. You just need to learn a little bit about her, and especially to get to know her as a person. So when you talk about Tulasi Devi, you can see her as this little tree. She can be bigger, of course. So as a plant, like she has actually it's not a material body, but when we see Tulasi, we see her as a plant, and then we say she has this material body, but she's also worshipped as a deity. So so if you have been in Bhakti Yoga for some times, then you also know that we chant the Maha Mantra, but we also worship the deities, which represent the form of Krishna and his many incarnations, so he can be worshipped in many forms. We also worship pictures, and we worship the mantra. And we say that all of them are on the absolute plane, which means that they're non-different from Krishna, the absolute truth. And my husband is now arriving home, so he will make... Oh, I locked the door. Just a second. So I have to go. Yeah, sorry about that. So I was talking about how in Bhakti Yoga we worship the pictures, we worship the deities, we worship the mantra, and then we say that when we chant the Maha Mantra, so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is said that all the energies of the Lord are in this mantra, and therefore this mantra is non different from the person of the Lord. In the same way, because the Lord has a spiritual body which cannot be visible with his eyes, it cannot be touched with our senses, we cannot perceive him, so he is so merciful that he comes in a certain form here. And he takes a form of wood, a form of brass, a form of stone. So in this form, if we worship him, he will come, he will manifest. And why is this so important? Because we want to establish a relationship with the Lord. And sometimes when we don't see him, like we always have to have something here so that we can say it's visible for us, that we can relate to it. So therefore we have the deities. So by worshipping the deities, we can establish a certain relationship with them. And this is also not something that should be unfamiliar to us, because I was thinking about it, especially when I started practicing Bhakti yoga. Like when we were children, it was totally natural for us that I'm not saying that deity worship is the same, but I'm just saying that there is some inner feeling when we are so innocent, and when we come to this world, we think everything is alive. We talk to the trees, we talk to the dolls, we talk to the animals, we see them as persons. So somehow, I believe that when we are so innocent and when we are children, we can have this feeling that everything actually is so personal around us. And we can relate to it, and we have this need to relate to it. So let's say that in a similar sense, when we don't know anything about deity worship, we can relate to the Lord when he comes in the form of a deity, because then we can actually touch him, we can see him, we can dress him, we can serve him, we can cook for him, and so on. And the whole relationship becomes personal, and we can have many realizations in it. So just because we are so unaware of what true spirituality is, we are so unaware of our true identity, that we are a spirit soul, we need this help in this way, that we can see the Lord in the picture, that we can see the Lord in the deity. So why am I saying all this? Because in a similar way, there is Tulasi. And Tulasi, as I said, can be also worshipped in the form of a deity, and she can be worshipped as she is here in a form of a plant, and she can also be worshipped in a picture frame. She is considered to be a pure devotee of Krishna. She is actually, in the essence, one of the expansions of Srimati Radharani. And there is a whole story, and we are going to read that story eventually, why actually Tulasi Devi manifested in this material world, and how can we benefit by worshipping her. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about who she is. I will also explain how you can harvest her in a way at home, because it's quite easy, how you can plant her, how you can worship her every day and try to establish a relationship with her. And I was also just thinking like how sometimes we think that because we have this mentality of, which is normal, like we are born in this world, we are raised in a certain way, so some people actually have relationships with plants, but most people, they can maybe establish a relationship with animals. And why am I saying this? Because the humanity in general, sometimes, especially when they're not practicing spirituality, they think that only humans are conscious and that they have feelings, and they don't accept that animals have feelings, that plants have feelings, and so on. That's why people eat meat, because they think that the animals and plants are things. And this is actually something that is accepted generally, because I have been practicing law in my life, and if you read the some legal descriptions about what animals are and what plants are, they are described as things, like something that just is a thing that belongs to you, that has no feelings, no consciousness, and so on. So that is not true. And that is not true in the material world as such, but that is also not true in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, when you read the books of Srila Prabhupada, when you read the books of the great saints in the Bhakti Yoga line, you will see how, in which way they describe the spiritual world. They describe the spiritual world as a place where everything is alive. So even something that would be considered like a dead matter in the material world is alive in the spiritual world. So everything is conscious and everything is serving the Lord in love. So that's actually the whole point. And so I'm just trying to explain how that's normal and how this material world is actually a reflection of the spiritual world, and therefore everything in a way is alive here, not the dead matter, but the plants, the animals, the bacteria, and so on. They're all alive because they have spirit souls. And that is something that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says that actually we are not these bodies, and that we are spirit souls, and that there are past lives also, and that there is reincarnation. And sometimes when people hear about reincarnation, they think, well, okay, I reincarnate in another human form, but that's not true. You can reincarnate you can have a body of an animal, you can have a body of a fish, you can have a body of a plant or a tree. It depends on what kind of consciousness you have been cultivating in your life. So if you were very unconscious, and if you were only enjoying, and if you didn't care about anything what was happening around you, you had no shame about things and so on, you can become a tree, especially if you like to walk nude around. It is described like that in the Vedas, because if you like to walk around nude, then if in the next life you can be reincarnated in a tree, because trees never have clothes, so you are nude, so in a way your desire is fulfilled. So these are some, it's more complicated than that. I just simplified it. But I just wanted to say how we should look at the things around us as they have souls, and that they are individuals, that they are persons, and that they have these certain bodies due to their activities and the cultivation of consciousness that they did in their past lives. So that's a little bit in short about just to understand this conception that everything that's living around us has a soul, and that we only have these bodies due to our karma. And all of us, even though we are spirit souls, we're conditioned here. To be conditioned means that we don't know that we are spirit souls. We don't know that actually we belong to the spiritual world. We don't know that we have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's our unfortunate. That actually means in Bhakti Yoga to be unfortunate. We are unfortunate because we don't know this. Because if we did know that, we would be very happy. There would be no anxiety. We would understand that we are actually eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge, and there would be no room of fear. So, but I now explained like that there are souls who live here in this world in this conditioned way, and 99% of the living entities on this planet live in this way. But there are some which are liberated, and they are considered pure. They are considered pure and liberated because they understand who they are, that they are spirit souls. They understand that they have a relationship with the Lord. They understand that they are servants of the Lord. And they come to this world to help us, actually. So one of these pure souls that comes to this world to help us in our spirituality, in cultivating Bhakti Yoga, is Tulasi Devi. So she is a pure devotee of Krishna. She can be understood on many levels because she is one of the expansions also of Radharani. So she exists in many dimensions in the spiritual world, but she also exists here in the material world. She comes to help Krishna in his pastimes, and she also comes here to help us. And I will tell a little bit about her story, why she came here. And it's also like a benediction that Krishna gave to her. God, or Krishna, he is not some selfish person who just wants to sit on a throne and be worshipped and loved without giving something. He's not like that. His heart is very soft. He likes to exchange in relationships that he has with other spirit souls, and he also likes to glorify them. So in order to glorify certain pure devotees with whom he has a relationship, he creates certain pastimes. So in that sense, he also created a pastime with Tulasi Devi, who came to this planet actually to give benediction to us, but also to never be separated from the Lord. Because when a pure soul establishes his or her relationship with the Supreme Lord, that spirit soul cannot bear separation. So, and because of that, it will do anything in order to serve the Lord. So in the same sense, Tulasi Devi comes to this world to serve the Lord. So this was sort of an introduction because, as I said, there's so many levels on which we can talk about Tulasi Devi, and we will talk about Tulasi Devi on many levels. I will try to explain some things, considering that there are people here who are beginners and who don't know many things. So I will try my best to explain. And if there is something you don't understand, or if you have a question, I can see your comments, so you can ask questions. And that will make it easier for me, because I'm here with the camera. I don't have people who are sitting in front of me so that I can have an interaction. I actually have an interaction with the device here, and I'll try to do my best to explain. But the most important thing is that it doesn't matter on which level you are, whether you are just beginning to explore spiritual life, or you are very much engaged in your spirituality. Everyone can worship Tulasi, and I actually, by this presentation, I would like to encourage others to really take care of Tulasi in their homes. And there are so many benefits of it, and I will tell which they are. Let's start first from the beginning. So I made this seminar, so I will actually base my lecture on this seminar that I made and try to explain little by little. First, I would like to read what is so wonderful about Tulasi. It is said that by seeing Tulasi, one's sins are subdued. By touching Tulasi, one's body is purified. By glorifying Tulasi, one's desires are destroyed, material desires. By watering Tulasi, one overcomes death. By sowing Tulasi, one attains Krishna's association. By offering Tulasi to Krishna, one achieves liberation in this life. I offer my obeisances at the feet of Tulasi Devi, without whom Lord Vishnu does not eat. So, in this shloka or verse, we can see that there are so many benefits in worshipping Tulasi Devi. If you ever went to the temple in Zagreb, and if you ever went to a morning program, you will see that the morning program starts with greetings to the deities, but also after that there is worship of Tulasi. So you can see that if the Tulasi is worshipped every day in the temple, that means that it really has a great importance for our spiritual life. And if we cultivate worship of Tulasi at home, we are actually creating a place of pilgrimage, because it is said that whoever has Tulasi Devi at home, his home is considered to be a place of pilgrimage. So when we read the scriptures, and this pertains to the Vedic scriptures, it is described that Tulasi Devi's leaves, Tulasi Devi's branches, Tulasi Devi's tree, it has all the demigods inside of it. It has all the presiding deities in this material world presiding in this tree. So whenever you worship Tulasi, in that sense, you're worshipping everything. You are worshipping all the demigods. And when we talk about worshipping of the demigods, it's not so important to mention that in the Western world, because it's not so prevalent here. It's more prevalent in India. And I think that the worship of the demigods is actually only a part of mythology in Europe and West, and especially in Europe, because I don't know, we have it in Greek mythology, in Roman mythology. We actually have the demigods there, but they're considered as something that's like make-believe. Nobody actually worships them here. But we have, but that worship is only prevalent in areas like India, and there it is like advisable to maybe mention this, because then you can induce others, like they can have a reason like why they would like to worship Tulasi Devi. So, but it's like she just contains all these favorable things in her body, and that's why it's so nice if we worship her. Okay. She can actually bestow upon us the highest goal of life, and that is the residence in the pleasure groves of Vrindavan, while making us followers of the cowherd damsels of Vraja. There really is nothing higher than her. And this is actually what practitioners of Bhakti Yoga pray every day. We will go through that prayer as well, but every morning when there is a worship of Tulasi Devi in someone's home or in the temple, we actually sing that we would like the highest, we would like to achieve the highest relationship that can be achieved with God, and that is, of course, prema, but in the relationship that the Lord has with the gopis. So it's quite, the worship itself is quite intimate, it's quite confidential, and it reveals many layers to the worshipper. But for the beginner, it acts as a purifying agent, all this worship, because it is said like that mantra, Maha Mantra, when we chant it, it has an effect on a person, whether the person understands what the mantra means or the person does not understand what mantra means. In the same sense, when someone worships Tulasi Devi, whether by touching her, by seeing her, like we now read, or by watering her, because sometimes people come, they don't understand what is the significance of Tulasi Devi, and they water her, for instance, they do something for her. It doesn't matter. She will purify them, so she will have an effect. And then Srila Prabhupada, that's what I wanted to say at the beginning, he explained how the quality of fire is that it burns. So wherever you put fire, it will burn something. So in the same sense, wherever you have the mantra or wherever you have Tulasi Devi, they will purify also things and persons around them. So they have this effect. So Tulasi Devi also was not always worshipped in the West. So as we all know, Srila Prabhupada, who is a founder, Acharya of ISKCON here in the Western world, he brought all these books of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, so everything that we actually know in our line we know from him. When he came to the West, he was not actually expecting that we would worship Tulasi Devi, because Tulasi Devi grows in a more dry and very warm places like Vrindavan, which is like desert-like. Tulasi as such needs a lot of sun, and I don't know, Western world doesn't have so much sun and doesn't have the same climate, so he was not actually expecting that this Tulasi would grow where he would go. But it is very nice to mention his disciple, Govinda Dasi. So she was reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and she came to know about Tulasi Devi, and she was living in Hawaii, and she somehow found Tulasi seeds, and she was the first Westerner, the practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, who actually planted the Tulasi. And Srila Prabhupada, as a spiritual master of her, who was his disciple, he was very pleased. And the disciple always wants to please the spiritual master out of love. So this whole exchange happened, and that's how Tulasi became worshipped in the West. And then Govinda Dasi taught other devotees there and devotees in other countries how to take care of her. So now we have this fortune to worship Tulasi Devi. So, and I think in the 1970s we started with the worship here in the West. Okay, so before I start talking about some aspects of Tulasi Devi, I would like to actually talk a little bit about who she is. And I will read a little bit about it because it's much easier. So Srimati Tulasi Devi has actually another name also. Actually, she has many names. And she's also known by the name of Srimati Vrinda Devi. So in the spiritual world, there are many spiritual planets. Just like in this material world, there are planets. In the spiritual world, there are also planets. And these planets are called Vaikuntha Lokas. Vaikuntha means place without misery, and Loka means a planet. So in Vaikuntha Lokas, there is one planet which is considered the highest, and it is called Goloka Vrindavan, Goloka planet, where Krishna lives with his cowherd boys, cowherd girls, his family. He has Surabhi cows, and they're all worshipping him there. And on this Goloka, Tulasi is known as Vrinda Devi, and in Vaikuntha Lokas, Tulasi is known as Tulasi, just that you know. So Srimati Tulasi Devi, or Srimati Vrinda Devi, is a pure devotee of Krishna, an eternal resident of Goloka Vrindavan. So she exists because in the spiritual world things are like that. And she exists simultaneously. She exists as Srimati Vrinda Devi on Goloka Vrindavan, and she exists as Tulasi Devi, is one of the wives of Krishna on Vaikuntha Lokas. She exists like that there. But she also exists in the form of a plant. So that's the potency of someone who is pure, that there are many ways in which a pure devotee or pure associate of Krishna can expand. We also know that the Lord expands. Lord Krishna can expand in many incarnations, and he does that, and we know him as Lord Narasimhadev, we know him as Balaram, as his first expansion. We know him as Lord Chaitanya, we know him as Lord Varahadev, and so on. There are many incarnations of the Lord. And He also exists simultaneously in Goloka as a cowherd boy there, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And on Vaikunthas he also exists. And he's known by many names like Lord Narayana, Lord Vishnu, and so on. So there are many names of the Lord and many forms of the Lord living on this Vaikuntha planets. So he exists there simultaneously, and he accepts the service of his associates. So that's how it is done in the spiritual world. And it's always good to actually listen about how it is in the spiritual world, because we forgot about it. We don't remember it due to this contamination and so many births in this material world. So it's very good to have a picture of how it looks like and to listen about it. Today we had a class from Srimad Bhagavatam, and we were reading how it is very good to hear about Goloka Katha. So Goloka Katha actually means that we are hearing about the spiritual world and not about material things, because material things only bring us misery, anxiety, fear. And then we gave an example of the newspaper. And actually, I think that all of you have experienced in this pandemic how, and now war, how many news are can be false, and how they always bring anxiety, fear, definitely not relief, and so on. So totally opposite to that are the topics about the spiritual world. So it's also very, very nice to listen about that. It purifies us and it actually delivers us from anxiety and fear. So we said that Vrinda Devi lives on Goloka Vrindavan. And it is explained by Srila Prabhupada in the purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is one of the scriptures that Srila Prabhupada translated and explained. He said that the word Vana means forest. Vrindavana is the name given to the forest where Srimati Vrinda Devi, Tulasi Devi, grows profusely. So this Vrindavan can be found also on this planet Earth, in India, in Vrindavan. And many of you, I guess, who practice Bhakti Yoga were there. I didn't have that fortune to go to Vrindavan, but I have that fortune to have Vrindavan at my home because whoever has Vrinda Devi at home actually has a Vrindavan forest at home. So there's no difference in that sense. Every place can be every place can be Vrindavan if there is Tulasi Devi there. So the place where Sri Vrinda Devi grows profusely, or Tulasi Devi, is called Vrindavan. So when you go, if you didn't go to India, when you go there, you will see that there are many Tulasis growing there, and people are worshipping them, and she's very much connected with the worship of the Lord. And Vrinda Devi, she performed penances in Vrindavan forest, which is actually named after her. And she performed penances 60,000 years ago. So that's why I said like that. It will take us a long time to describe Tulasi Devi. So when someone hears like, okay, she performed penances for 60,000 years, what does that mean? Well, that means that she's anyway a spiritual pure person, so she can perform penances for so long. But also there are ages in this universe where actually persons could live so long, and they did really perform penances for so long. So so that's why we can say that when we talk about Tulasi Devi, we can talk about everything. So we can mention here that, for example, now we are living in Kali Yuga, but there are also 3 more yugas except Kali Yuga. There is Satya, Treta, and Dvapara Yuga. And persons and living entities who are living in these yugas, yuga means age, They had a different span of life. They lived longer, and they could perform penances for so long. But in this case, this is like a pastime, a play of a pure soul who is performing certain penances in order to I'm just trying to find the word, to create a certain pastime of the Lord where He will enjoy and we can benefit, and we will see in which way. So she was born as a daughter of Emperor Kedera, a very pious king who attained Goloka Vrindavan. His daughter, after sanctifying the forest with her penance, also attained Goloka. Because of her austerities, the forest was granted a boon by Lord Krishna that any penance performed here will quickly fructify and bear excellent result. So, whenever a pure soul comes from the spiritual world and it's not contaminated like we are, usually that soul performs penances or does certain activities to please the Lord. Why? Because that soul is overwhelmed with love for the Lord, and she wants to actually go back to the spiritual world where she can have the eternal exchange with the Lord. So that's one of the reasons why she performed these austerities. And the Lord, as we said, He also wants to glorify a person with whom He has a relationship with. So therefore, He made her glorious. He said, because you performed so many austerities in this beautiful forest, I will name this forest after you. So this forest was named Vrindavan. So that's how Vrindavan was named. And her expansion to Tulasi Devi, daughter of King Kushadvaja, also performed penances in Vrindavan forest and attained all perfection. So this is like the doors are now opened. We are entering a history of how Tulasi actually came into this world. And sometimes we also must understand that many things that happen in the spiritual world, they happen as a play. So like the residents of the spiritual world are actually playing. They're dancing and singing. It is said that in the spiritual world, every word is a song and every step is a dance. So whatever is done there, it's totally different than anything that is done in the material world. But because we live here in this world, we have the experiences of this world. So therefore, whenever we hear certain stories, we reflect our experiences on the stories that we hear from the spiritual world. But we should always keep in mind that that is not the same. It's totally different. And you will understand why while I read this story. But first I have to check what is the time. And just a second. Okay. So Tulasi Devi was born as a daughter of King Kushadvaja. For a long time he was not able to obtain a child, and therefore he faithfully worshipped Goddess Lakshmi to obtain a child. By the mercy of Goddess Lakshmi, he soon got a beautiful baby girl. It was seen that she was an exalted personality because she had marks of lotus flower on her feet. So exalted personalities usually have marks on their feet, which like you can explore it by yourself. If you don't know, Krishna has beautiful marks on which we can meditate, Radharani as well. So in the similar sense, Vrinda Devi or Tulasi Devi also has marks of lotus flowers on her feet. Her face looked like autumnal moon. Her eyes resembled blooming lotuses, and her lips appeared like ripe bimba fruit. Her palms and the soles of her feet were reddish. Her navel was deep, and just above it were 3 folds. Her buttocks were round, and her body was delightfully warm in the winter and cool in the summer, very pleasant to touch. Her breasts were firm and her waist thin, and the light shining from her body surrounded her like halo. Her complexion was white, like a champaka flower, and her hair looked beautiful. Because her beauty was incomparable, the sages called her Tulasi. So that's how Tulasi actually was given this name. She was also born as Jatismara. So what does that mean? Jatismara means that she was born as a person who could remember her previous life. So even though she was now born as Tulasi Devi, she was completely conscious of what she was in her previous life. And she was aware, therefore, that she was a gopi coming from Goloka Vrindavan, and she was aware of her attraction to Krishna. Therefore, she practiced austerities in Badrinatha for 100,000 celestial years because she wanted Lord Krishna to appear and become her husband. So that's why I said at the beginning how we should understand that certain things are play in the spiritual world. So because the Lord wanted Tulasi actually to appear in this world and to perform these austerities and to create the whole story that will happen and that we will read about it, because he wanted this to happen, Radharani cursed actually Tulasi, who was as Vrinda Devi in Goloka Vrindavan. So in her previous life, she was a gopi in Vrindavan, and she was serving the divine couple. And at one point, she desired to have an exchange with Krishna, and Radharani knew about that, and she became angry, and she cursed her to become born in the material world. But Lord Krishna wanted to rectify, in a sense, this curse, so he said, okay, you can be born in the material world because I have to fulfill the desire of Radharani, but if you worship me, I will become your husband. So please do that when you go to the material world. So that is why, and she was given like this knowledge of who she was in the previous life so that she can understand what she has to do. So knowing that she was a gopi in Vrindavan, she came to the material world and she started performing penances to attain Krishna because that's what Krishna told her to do. And some may think, oh, but how can Radharani be so cruel that she cursed Vrinda Devi and sent her to this material world? But actually, it was just a play, and immediately when she said these words that please go and be born in the material world, she regretted it, and she wanted to do everything she could to rectify what she did. But the stage was set, the story had to happen, so to come back to it. So Tulasi Devi, she's in the material world. She's performing austerities for 100,000 celestial years because she wants Krishna as her husband. And because she was worshipping Krishna, she was also expecting that Krishna will appear because that's what Krishna said. But Lord Brahma appeared instead of Krishna. And she said to Lord Brahma, my name is Tulasi, and formerly I was a cowherd girl in Vrindavan, and there I served Radharani. I am a partial expansion of Srimati Radharani, and was her favorite companion. But one day, in the place where the rasa dance had occurred, Krishna became intimate with me, and I fainted from excessive joy. While I was lying there, Radharani suddenly appeared and saw me in that condition. She was not at all pleased. She said, O vile one, go and take birth as a human being. Then Krishna said to me, when you take birth in India, if you practice austerities, Lord Brahma will grant you a blessing. He will arrange for you to marry the four-armed Narayan, who is an expansion of myself. Finishing her story, she asked him to please grant her this boon. So Lord Brahma could not actually fulfill the desire of Tulasi Devi because there was also another personality in the story, and that was Sudama. And Sudama is also a personality who is living in the spiritual world on Goloka Vrindavan. And just to remind you, it's a play. So just as Tulasi had a desire to be with Krishna, Sudama had a desire to be with Tulasi Devi. And Radharani, again, she found out about this, and she got angry, and she cursed Sudama to be born in the material world. So that's how Tulasi and Sudama ended up here for this like play of Krishna where he wanted things happen in a certain way. So Sudama, also because he had this desire to have Tulasi for his wife, Krishna wanted to fulfill that desire. And he told him that even though Radharani cursed him, and Radharani again regretted that she cursed him, they told him like to rectify this, okay, you will go there to the material world, but don't worry, it will be just like a second, but you will have to live this life. And if you want Tulasi to be your wife, then you should also perform certain austerities, and then your wish will come true. So Sudama also got a boon, just like Tulasi Devi, that he can remember his past life. So he was aware of who he was aware of his desires, and with this in mind, he performed austerities. And because he performed austerities also for I don't know how many thousands of celestial years, he again pleased Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma came and he asked him, what would you like me to fulfill for you? And he said that he would like to have Tulasi for his wife. And since Lord Brahma promised to Sudama before he promised to Tulasi, he told her that I will grant you your wish. You will have Krishna for your husband. But before that, I have to fulfill the desire of Sudama. So please wait, in a sense. And Lord Brahma then approached Sudama, which in this life was not called Sudama, but Shankachuda, and I'm so bad with his names. Anyway, his name was Shankachudna. And he was also, because he was cursed by Radharani, he was born in the family of demons. But when we talk about demons, we don't talk about like, I don't know, ugly creatures who look like devil and so on. It's not like that. Demons are the ones who, demons are called like asuras. It's called sura. Sura is considered to be a demigod, and asura is the one who is not a demigod, but somehow it's translated as a demon, but it doesn't mean automatically that the demon cannot be a devotee of the Lord, or that he has to look ugly or something. On contrary, Sudama, when he was born in this family of asuras, he was very exalted, he was very knowledgeable. I think he was even a disciple of some great spiritual master. He was very brave, so he had many beautiful qualities, and he was, above everything, he was a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Brahma arranged that Sudama and Tulasi get married, and they did. And in this way, Krishna, through the agency of Lord Brahma, fulfilled the desire of Sudama, and he also will fulfill the desire of Tulasi Devi. So Sudama, as an asura in this life, he wanted to conquer all the planetary systems, which means that he wanted to conquer all the demigods and become victorious and rule everyone and everything. And he got a boon to rule like that from Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma told him that as long as he carries one jewel, which is the jewel of victory, he will never be defeated, and as long as his wife is chaste to him, he will also not be defeated. And that's how it was. He was conquering the whole planetary systems. He was a great king. He ruled with Tulasi, and the demigods, because they lost their positions, they became very disturbed, and they came to Lord Brahma and told him that he has to do something, because now they can no longer perform their duties. They don't have their posts, how they will live, and they asked him to help them. And they asked him also to ask Lord Vishnu to help them. So that is what happened. So you can see that Lord Krishna, in the form of Lord Vishnu, he had this whole plan where he would make an arrangement of how Sudama can be actually defeated. and how the demigods can regain their posts, because Lord Vishnu is always favorable to the demigods, even though sometimes, I don't know, some personality comes and tries to, make them leave their posts or something. Lord Vishnu will always install them to their posts. It's just the way how it is in this material world. So, because Sudama, as Asura king, he was very religious and he was a devotee of Krishna, Lord Vishnu knew that if he approaches him dressed as a Brahmana and asks for anything, like begs for anything, Sudama will give it to him. So that's what Lord Vishnu did. He disguised as a Brahmana and he approached the court of Sudama, where he actually asked him for this victory jewel, that he gives him that. And Sudama, because he actually just wanted to leave for the spiritual world, and he was always very inclined towards the Brahmanas, he gave him that jewel, and Lord Vishnu, disguised as a Brahmana, took it. So that was the one condition fell, so how Sudama could be defeated by the demigods. And the other thing that Lord Vishnu did was that when Sudama left home, he left Tulasi, he left his kingdom, he went to fight with the demigods. When he did that, he left Tulasi at home, and then Lord Vishnu actually disguised himself as Sudama, and he created the whole situation as he was Sudama coming back from the battle victorious home. So he was coming on elephants with the army, and Tulasi was waiting for him at home, and she thought that her husband was actually coming to see her, that he was coming victorious from the battle. And therefore she received him as a wife receives a husband, and then after some time she realized that there is something strange with this person, and she engaged with him in a relationship as a husband and wife, and then she realized that actually this is not my husband. And at that moment Sudama was in a battle. He was battling Lord Shiva and all the other demigods, and then the second condition fell. So first was the jewel of victory, which was taken by Lord Vishnu, who was disguised as a Brahmana, and the second condition for his victory also fell because his wife was not chaste anymore. So Lord Vishnu tricked him, and therefore in that battle Sudama was killed. And Tulasi realized that, because she knew what are the conditions for her husband to be invincible. And she got very angry at Lord Vishnu when she realized what he has done, because Sudama was his devotee. So therefore she cursed him. She told him that he was cold as stone, and therefore, because he killed his devotee, and because he is cold as like stone, he should be turned into stone. And she cursed him in this way, out of anger. And then, with this curse, Lord Vishnu will give Tulasi Devi a benediction. And since it's quite late now, I will actually continue with this story in part 2 of Glories of Tulasi Devi. For now, I would just like to say that in this battle, Sudama lost his life, of course, and automatically he went to the spiritual world. He went back into his own position, just like the Lord promised him. And now we have a situation where Tulasi Devi, she got her wish fulfilled in a way, because in front of her was the object of her desire. The object is, the person she was worshipping. So, and she cursed him to become a stone. And he will become a stone. And she will also gain certain benedictions, which we will continue to talk about them in our next class. And these benedictions will actually make her accept the body of a tree that we worship now. And then he will talk about her glories and why he did that. And she will simultaneously exist in the spiritual world in Goloka Vrindavan as Vrinda Devi. She will exist as Tulasi Devi, as his consort in the Vaikunthas. And she will also exist in the material world, where she will be worshipped by everyone. She will be worshipped by the demigods. The demigods will never take any offering without her presence. And Lord Krishna also said that whoever worships him in this material world has to worship him with the leaves of the Tulasi. So I hope you like the story, because it's very important to know it, and it's very beautiful to know it, and it's also inspiring to know about the life of Tulasi Devi, and to also understand why we should worship her. And now I have one comment from Sri Devi Radhika. So there is a question. Lots of devotees, at least in Balkan or India, have an idea of, I don't know that word, changing, I guess, their devotee partner to be so-called better devotee. I don't know if I understand this question. But maybe, I'm sorry. I don't know what you refer to, and I don't know how is that connected to Tulasi Devi, but yeah. Maybe you can write to me in some, I don't know, some message on Facebook or something. So this is the beginning of the story of Tulasi Devi. I hope I at least got you interested to hear more in our next class. Maybe if you have some questions or comments, you're always welcome to post them. And also, if you like, there are so many books and so many web pages where you can learn by yourself a little bit more about Tulasi Devi. So this was the beginning. We said that we established that we are spirit souls. We also talked about the spiritual world, how there everything is alive, how sometimes pure devotees accept how pure devotees accept many dimensions of existence in a way. So that's why we were mentioning how Vrinda Devi, she can live simultaneously in Goloka Vrindavan, in Vaikuntha Loka, and also in the material world, and how here she manifests in the form of a tree, Tulasi tree, that we worship. And we will also talk about in our next class how she became a tree, what benedictions actually Lord Vishnu gave to her, and how we will also explain in the future how she affects our spiritual life. So Sri Devi Radhika asked that why do people, I guess devotees, change someone else and not themselves in the relationship? Well, I don't know how to actually answer that question, because it has nothing to do with Tulasi Devi. But if you want to talk about relationships, I mean, we can talk about it privately. Usually the problem of this world is that nobody wants to change. They always want to change someone else, or they want someone else to change, but they don't want to change themselves. So this understanding can reflect in a relationship, it can reflect in the family, it can reflect in a state, in the world, and so on. So eventually a person has to understand that we have to change ourselves first and not the others. We have to accept others actually as they are, and if we don't like them, then we can also move on, or stay and serve this person, and maybe the person's heart will change eventually, but maybe not in the sense that we want it. But yeah, so that's the thing that I can say a little bit about that. Hope I answered your question, but also it has nothing to do with what we were talking here. So sorry. Hare Krishna. So yeah. So I wish you all the best, and I hope in 2 or 3 weeks I will have one more Wednesday where we can continue with the story of Tulasi Devi. So she cursed Vishnu. Vishnu is going to give benedictions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.